pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome back. If I could ask the superintendent for the fire department, perhaps?
Sure, through the chair, in case of an emergency, we have two exits right here. Go through those two doors, straight down the hallway to the main entrance for an exit. If that is blocked for whatever reason, we do have a door right here. We'll go through that door and follow the exit sign.
Thank you. Next item we have is the approval of the minutes, and these are regular meeting minutes from December 4th, 2023. Is there a motion to accept?
Second.
Motion from Don, second from Don. Any discussions, changes? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We have the approval of the warrants. Hopefully they're circulating somewhere. I don't see the flow. Tim has it. All right. If I could ask for a motion to sign the warrants.
So moved. Second.
Motion second. And I think, Jim, that was you that seconded, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? Discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Great. Do we have any correspondence? And Kirsten, I think Kirsten has a statement that the superintendent will read, student advisory committee member.
Through the chair, Kirsten couldn't be here due to a prior work commitment. She did provide a statement that I'll read. I wish I could be at today's meeting, but I had a prior work commitment. Since the last meeting, I released a survey among the students. We got about 180 student responses, which could be better considering our student population, but it is still good for our first survey. Most of the responses were from seniors, and the biggest concern of them was having to leave after the buses, causing it to take more time to get home and to their jobs at the end of the day. I spoke briefly with Mr. Brenner and Mr. Packett about these responses. I hope to speak to them more about them and send out another survey soon in the hopes of getting a larger number of student responses. Before winter break, the Leo Club collected a variety of donations to give to Alzheimer's patients and made holiday bags and cards for them. The Renaissance Club has been active with the Goodies and Gratitude event they held to reward students who received high honors for term 4 of last school year and term 1 of this year. This club is an amazing way to push students to want to achieve higher grades to be part of these special events. The club also just announced a t-shirt design contest where students have a chance to create their own design that will represent the 23-24 school year. This way, the club is for the high honor students and anyone wanting to make their own design. Winter sports have been in full swing and our teams have been doing very well, and attending the games is a fun activity for all students.
And I think Kirsten, never mind, I'll come back to that later. So thank you for reading that. Under old business, we have the MASC policy review proposal. And I think most of us were here during the subcommittee conversation, so I don't know how much additional conversation or overview we need, but Tracy fortunately is still here. If there's any questions from the MASC perspective on what that policy would consist of. Does the full committee want an overview of that policy again? If so, I'm sure Tracy would be more than happy to run through it again. Or I'd be happy to entertain a motion. So, Peter, I don't know if you want to give an overview. Obviously, everyone was here, but the policy subcommittee.
Well,
Yeah.
as discussed with our subcommittee, this would review our policies and check both state and federal levels. And for my input, I would think that $3,500 per year for 3 years is worth the investment. for us to have a professional team come in, review it with us, and help us with issues that we're dealing with, especially with what goes on in the world today. But that's my personal input.
I'd like to, maybe I'd move that on the table. What was the exact cost again?
It's $10,500,
Over
$3,500 a year.
Yeah, so I move that we accept the proposal with Mass Association of School Committees for $10,500 and the cost $3,500 per year for policy review.
Second.
So can I just suggest, and Tracy, keep me honest here, but I wanna go make sure that the motion is appropriate. We're talking $3,500 per year, but technically that's not really the structure. It's upon signed contract, it's $3,500. And then I believe in July, it would be $3,500, and then upon completion, it would be $3,500. Just-
I'm sure, Mr. Chair, that we'd be glad to negotiate which fiscal year in July questions.
Okay.
Or negotiate $10,500 total.
That one I'm not actually able
Ah,
to.
no,
That's
would you like me to
above my-
redo the
that's above
motion?
my-
Would you just trying to go to the work for your table? Would you like me to redo the motion a little bit, reword that?
Just for
Yeah,
clarity.
yeah. So I move that we accept the proposal to expend $10,500 with the Mass Association of School Committees for policy review.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion?
Just a comment. If anyone has been through policy review, it goes on and on. It does. It's really, and that would mean a real commitment from policy subcommittee members. It goes on and on, and you don't realize
Right.
how time consuming it is.
And we've got the right other sheriff for it.
Yeah. But certainly I will be fully in support of that.
I'd just like to say, we talked about the last time this was done was 2011. That's a long time ago. And the other thing that I participated in is as we were looking for a new superintendent, and MASC did provide us with that, and they were really a guide. They weren't making our decisions, they were a guide. And I think it's well worth the money.
No, and when you really think about it, I mean, it's been a while since I've been on a public school committee. When I was, I mean, the litigious aspect of policy, malfeasance, and vague policies, they are really not, this is short money for the expense of getting the policies right, I think, in today's environment. I think it's really important. And at the end of the day, if we didn't use associations, we had to use attorneys. So, I think it's a draw. It needs to be done. In 2011, you didn't hear that right in the last meeting too, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, so my opinion, that's a policy good as garbage. That's over a decade ago. You know, I mean, somebody challenged it, understanding it happened. So, yeah, one way or the other needs to be done, I think it's a good motion.
Any other comments or questions? Bob?
My abstention during the subcommittee meeting was in a way to answer the questions or protect the interest of my colleague Ben. And since he's not here, I'm going to change my vote to an affirmative.
Meaning during the full session here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
okay.
the full session.
Yeah, Bob, where were you?
Any other questions, comments?
I would just offer that any policy subcommittee members that want to get involved in this have the ability to do this right through the whole process. You know, you can be as involved or not as involved as you choose to be. MASC is very open to that sort of input. So, you know, if someone is concerned that there may be something going on that's not quite up to par or whatever, you have the full ability to police as you will, you know, what's going on, so it's not like it's a closed process.
Thank you.
Is there a paper version somewhere? I started, back when we were talking about this, I actually burned my eyes out looking at the screen. It is extensive, I double checked with Macaulay here, there's a couple hundred policies. And I don't know who originally put them together, but that was a lot of work. And a paper version would be easier to work with. I don't think we can put in workers' comp claims when we're not paid, right?
So if I could, to that point, Tracy, if we move forward with MASC, how does that typically work? Are we looking at hard copies during these sessions, or is it encouraged to electronically review them?
So we actually think that one of the great innovations recently was being able to not do hard copies, only because having, as you're talking about the number of policies and having enough copies for everyone, were really exciting, transportation interesting. So the way that I work with the subcommittee is we go section by section, and there's a Dropbox folder that I put together that the policy subcommittee has a link to, although it then obviously is also public because the work is public, which will have for each section, you know, here's all of section A, it's your policies interspersed with the association's model policies. And then I also will add to that a memo from me that actually outlines what the differences are. Members wish to make copies, we can try to work on that in terms of paper copies. I actually myself, up to that point, when I'm working on one, I also will usually give myself a paper copy just to make sure I've got one paper here, one paper here. It's either that or I do it with two screens in the office. But that is up to all of you. Legally speaking, every school district in Massachusetts is supposed to have one paper copy that's constantly being updated. That sometimes is not always adhered to, so I wouldn't necessarily attest to that. I know that I actually have a paper copy in my office. It is a sizable binder, as you imagine.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
I'll be in touch with you and probably Cheryl in order to line things up.
Thank you for coming out tonight.
Have a good evening.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Moving on, under old business, this item doesn't appear on the agenda, but it is something that Mr. Grenier proposed last time at the last meeting. Did this have an opportunity to make it into the packet, or should I read it?
You should read it.
Okay. So, Mr. Grenier volunteered to draft a letter in appreciation of our maintenance staff here at the school, and he did do that, and I have that letter, and I think what we'd like to try to do tonight is authorize me to sign it so we can send it out to the building superintendent. So I'll just read it. Please accept this letter of appreciation on behalf of the Bay Path School Committee for the outstanding work and professionalism of your staff. The appearance of the building, hallways, classrooms, and grounds is a compliment to the maintenance staff. As chairman of the Bay Path School Committee, I can speak for the parents, students, teachers, staff, and school committee members who take pride in the Bay Path community that begins with a facility reflective of the Bay Path vision. Please extend our thanks to your dedicated team for maintaining a building and grounds that continues to look like it was opened yesterday. We know it is not an easy task. We wish you all a wonderful and happy, healthy new year. And then it has the names of each of the members of the building staff and then our signatures. So I entertain a motion to sign and send that letter.
Second.
Motion second. Any questions, comments, changes?
Mr. Grenier, well done.
Yeah, thank you very much. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Again, thank you. And I'll emphasize the thanks to building staff that we have. I think we're very fortunate to have such a dedicated staff. I'll give that to you before I forget. Next item, we have citizens' participation. Do we have anyone here this evening for citizens' participation? Okay, seeing none. We'll move into new business. Draft athletic field master plan, Gale Associates.
So through the chair, we asked Gale Associates to come in and do a presentation on the master plan update. So this evening we have Kathleen Purple from Gale Associates. We'll queue up through projectors.
I need to stand anywhere specific.
Wherever you're most comfortable doing.
Is it gonna be projected?
FTC, well, it's gonna be projected hopefully on both screens.
Okay,
So.
all right, well, that doesn't matter. Well, in the interim, I'll thank you all for having us here tonight, and we're excited about the project and the findings. And again, my name's Kathy Herbal. I'm actually the Director of Athletics at Gale Associates, and I've worked through with Colleen on this project. Colleen Fowler, which I know some of you, she was on the meetings with us, our project team meetings. But I'm here to provide an update on the athletic complex master plan on the fields here at Bay Path High School. As you may be aware, is Gale actually did the original master plan for the complex back in 2016. And what we were assigned to do is kind of go back, revisit that master plan, try to update things to today's standards, today's numbers, use numbers regarding the fields, athletes, teams, and then try to help you determine where your deficits are on your field uses, and then how to move forward. Next slide, please. So what we started off with is our background evaluation. What we did was we actually went out physically, looked at all the fields, their conditions. Things that we looked at are, the turf, the field dimensions, the conditions of, say, the track, the scoreboards, equipment, things along those lines. Even like soccer nets, we look at ADA compliance. We kind of put a scoreboard. We have a standard kind of checklist that we do, and kind of come up with kind of a score for the fields. 2 kind of being low. Most of these fields were a little bit above that in the high 1.8s. A couple of them were a little less. But like I said, what we looked at was the track and field facility, the practice field, as well as the softball and baseball fields. So just again, just to reiterate, the athletic complex and the fields that we had evaluated. Next slide, please. So the next thing we did, working with the project team, which we compiled data from the school regarding all the sports, the teams, whether it's girls, boys, JV, freshmen, varsity, who's used in the field, how often are they used in the field, and to come up with what we call kind of a needs assessment. These are all the uses that these fields see every day or through the different seasons. We also look at seasons. We look at the spring, we look at the fall, to try to compile exactly what's going on at the fields. And then what we do based on that, and I'll go into this a little bit more detail, is come up with a field equivalent and help you identify the deficit in regards to the fields that your program has. So I know it's a little hard to read, but this is the initial raw data that we received working through with the school. Again, you see the sports, you see the different fields across the top, and this is basically all the teams that are using the different fields during the different seasons. What we do next is we assign what we call an equivalent factor to kind of put them all on the same level. And what it is basically a football field, when used, gets chewed up a lot more, gets a lot more damage during a game versus, say, a soccer game. So they have different factors. So what we try to do is assign a factor to try to make them all even. So when we start adding up the needs, they get assigned that factor, and makes it, we can compare them all at the same time. Next slide. Our biggest driving which based on experience and with with the athletics, particularly grass fields, is a well-maintained grass field can take about 250 uses per year. That's about an hour and a half to 2 hours. That's, kind of your normal game or practice type time frame without being, before it needs to be rested. And the key thing on a lot of your fields is, how do we get them rested? How do we get you the additional field to let that happen? So basically going through the numbers that we went through with the deficits and such, the demand for what we call a multi-purpose field, multi-purpose being your soccer field, your football field, they can play lacrosse, they can play field hockey, those type of fields. We identified that there's actually 1,398 uses going on your multi-purpose fields every year, which actually right now you have two. You have kind of the practice field, and then you also have the stadium football multi-purpose field. Are based on the 250 number, basically is telling us that you really should be looking at 6 so that those grass fields can be rested, and which shows you the deficit of 4. Regarding the baseball and the softball fields, they're close. The softball is starting to get a little questionable. You can see that baseball, the use is pretty much in line with what you have, the one field. So that's, pretty much what we take now from here and figure out, okay, how do we get you these 4 additional fields? Next slide, please.
I have a question.
Sure.
The numerical data, what is that hours, is that days, what is that?
Would the
Numerical number, that 1398, what is that?
that is, if you go back a couple, that is the total uses, athletes, number of uses that we were provided by the school, the number of, like I said, it's teams, it's versus the teams, the number of athletes, events, like I said, for all the different levels, freshman, varsity, all the different sports.
People actually on the field.
Yes, that's the
Yeah, okay.
okay?
Yep.
All right. So after that, okay, so we figure out, okay, how are we gonna get you your fields? And actually, going back to the 2016 study, we found that the numbers didn't change tremendously, only because we had already put in some future numbers in that 2016 study, which actually, now that they have the real numbers, it was a good result that what we are coming up with now and what's being used and what was projected back in 2016 has really come to fruition. So what we were looking to do, basically, we're looking to get you your four fields. What we're proposing is basically improving the upper practice field to grass and just improving that, making it more regulation. Proposing a synthetic turf and new track at your existing stadium field. The best part about synthetic turf is it gives you more uses because it doesn't have to be rested, so it gives you a place to rest those other fields, a place to play. We switched around. We proposed improving the grass field down. You can see it down south of the high school. And we also shifted the baseball. What was over in that spot before was the baseball and softball. We're proposing to shift the baseball down across the street, a full-size 90-foot diamond, full size and regulation, and shift the softball, kind of flip it and improve its orientation. Obviously, softball, baseball, it's important. Your sun angles and such, for batters and outfields and such. So we were going to spin the softball, kind of convert the baseball field to the multi-purpose field over there, and then, like I said, we construct the baseball field over across Mugget Mill Road, and then do another grass multi-purpose field. In addition to that, we also looked for the team's request was to try to pick up some additional parking. So you'll see that we've got about 90 spaces proposed down below with a crosswalk, and then also a walkway that would bring students, allow the students to, get back up or down to the fields down in that lower half. So what changed from the last master plan? Like I said, even though it was considered as future on the original, the biggest change with sports was the addition of girls field hockey and then boys and girls lacrosse that are now official programs at the high school. We worked around the solar field that's being proposed down on the opposite side of Mugget Hill Road, and to try to fit the fields a little bit better. Again, I talked about the parking, the 90+ spaces. I know just about every high school needs more parking, and then, like I said, in conjunction with that is the addition of the crosswalks and the walkway, just to connect those that whole athletic system. So, master plan cost breakdown. If we were to do the whole project at one time, that's all the fields, the improvements as one project, you're looking at about $8.3 million. The one thing I just wanted to note is, should the track and field or any of these were to advance independently, you do incur additional costs because you pick up every project that you do. You're going to have mobilization, demobilization. You have your administrative time. You have the design, the separate design costs. So we had put together actually a proposal for the superintendent to just design the track and field project, synthetic turf with the regulation track, which would be about which the total cost would be about $2.8 million for the track and field. So yes.
Is that a estimated cost on today's dollars, or by the time this is built?
Well, what we add is we've been adding 25%, because this is very conceptual. We don't do any less than a 25% contingency. Just an FYI, athletic facility costs are going sky high every year. We saw a 7 to 10% jump from last year to this year. So just we try to make sure you guys, should it push out a little bit or whatever, that we've got you covered.
I have a question. What's the life cycle of the synthetic turf?
The synthetic turf field will last 10 to 14 years as long as it's well maintained. So, and what a lot of schools do is, do rentals and things like that if you have the availability. I know you've got a pretty large school system, but for junior type programs, small, lesser, like freshmen, or not freshmen, but like middle school, or some teams like that, not necessarily not middle school, but like private teams that might want to rent the facility just to gain some money to offset that, because you will need to replace it. But I do have a slide just to chat a little bit about synthetic turf for those of you who are familiar or not familiar with it. And I do have some examples so you can look at what turf and the infill. But this is just a typical section of the synthetic turf field, just to bring you up to speed. The little, what we call the blades, the grassy part, is called the fiber. That's really what we call our carpet. That's it's like a carpet basically. What goes in that is the infill. It goes in usually your fibers are about 2 inches high. The infill goes to about a ½ inch below that, like 1.5 inches. And what that does is it holds those fibers up, but also it gives you that cushion for play, the safety factors.
Is that polyethylene or polypropylene?
The polypropylene is the, yeah. Sorry, yes, no, it's ethylene, I'm sorry. My mistake. So just to let you know, and also through the system, so you have the infill, then depending on which infill you pick, if you use what we call the alternate infills, which is everything except crumb rubber, you're required to have a shock pad. A shock pad is really just you can see the picture, but it's really just kind of a foam pad. It's just an extra safety layer regarding kind of concussion injuries and such. But a lot of our clients, even though they might be doing crumb rubber and it may not be required, a lot of clients are doing it just as an extra safety factor for the athletes. Just to go through some of the infills, like I said, your standard kind of, a lot of fields, I think it's still pushing 80% in the country is still crumb rubber, kind of what you see. You might have seen at the Patriots game when they were plowing the snow and all the black kind of pellets came out of the infill. But because of the, not necessarily, I would say perceived concerns with crumb rubber, we have not had any studies or seen any results that it's tied to any health issues, but there's a lot of different studies that kind of contradict that. But the industry has looked at more natural infills. Just regarding costs, crumb rubber is the least expensive. The infill that is kind of growing popularity is what we call rock fill. We just did 2 fields at Algonquin High School in Northborough with Brockville. It's actually a wood base, and its pricing isn't much different than the crumb rubber. You get into some of these other ones, the organics, the soft shells, and some of these other artificial type, there's coated sand is the EnviroFill. Get into some of these TPE type infills, they start getting pretty expensive. So just something to keep in mind. And also a lot of what they call the real natural infills take a lot more replenishing because they do deteriorate because they are organic and would break down quicker than, say, the crumb rubber or the Brockville and such. So again, this just gives you a sense of what's under the field. We put a stone base, kind of acts, pretty much have about a 12-inch curb that goes around the whole field. And then what goes in there is a lower drainage system, and then that stone base, which basically acts kind of as a detention pond. It kind of holds the water, which allows the field to drain pretty much instantaneously, which is why they can play on them in the rain and such. So just to give you a sense on that. And then I threw this in. This is the kind of standard high school track that we've done everywhere. It's called the BSS 100. You know, your track coach or whatever might be more familiar with it. But this is the one that we've included in the cost estimate. You know, this surface, like I said, we've done that at numerous high schools. It's a section, and I don't want to say the least expensive, but most economical for the timing that you'll get. And a track surface will last about 16 years if, you'll have to coat it like after 8 years, just seal the top, like resurface it, but you don't have to do the whole section. And I just threw this in. We have not included athletic lighting in the cost estimate this time, but just to give you a sense of how the athletic lighting works and how, just to illustrate how quickly the light shine drops off the spill of the light, how quickly it drops off the field. So something to consider. If, you know, what's nice about the lights is it gives you even more play time because you're only limited by you know, how late you can leave the lights on, which whatever. So the start, going in the track and field process, you know, the next steps, you know, should you decide to proceed, obviously is to get your design process rolling. What that consists of is doing a survey of the field area. We would have to do geotechnical just for drainage designs and things along those lines. Survey allows us to develop our design-based plans, and then we would take the project through like schematic design, meeting with the team, whoever's assigned to the project on your behalf, take you through a schematic design, through 50% design and then 90% design, you know, taking your feedback, you know, all along, programming, things along those lines, what color do you want the track, and, you know, helping you make decisions on infill, things along those lines. We do anticipate some permitting. There are a couple of wellhead protection areas on the school property. So we anticipate that that's gonna require some permitting. Then once we get through the permitting, we have our design, we compile that and put together the bid documentations. We can assist the school through the whole bid process. And then as well as we provide construction phase services where, just to basically make sure the specs are met and take it from there. So with that, open it up for other questions, anybody? Yes?
How long, once this building project would be agreed upon, how long is the estimate to get it all completed?
If you get it all completed, they could probably do this in the summer, like starting June 1, and it might trickle into September. I don't know where your graduations are. A lot of times the stadium fields, the track and fields are where graduation is held. So maybe yours isn't, but no, good. Then you could probably give it up sooner. A lot of times we have graduation kids walking off one end and the contractor walking on the other because they're trying to get it done while school's out and you don't have athletic programs going on. So, but yeah, probably 4 months or so at the most. Yeah, I mean not the design. I mean the design would take 3 to 4 months. With some permitting, some maybe be conservative, maybe 5 months by the time we get the bid docs and bid the project. But the actual construction, 4 months or so. Yep, it's quick. And they come in and like I said, they do it in the summer. So, yeah. Yes.
You mentioned you have to redo the fields after 10 years, 14 years.
Yeah.
What's an average cost to redo
Probably 500,000 and really what you're replacing is the turf and maybe the infill. The shot pad, the base, stone base, everything stays except they'll come in, they remove that carpet and the infill. What they can do if it's crumb rubber, some of the infills they can actually, they vacuum and can kind of reuse it. Some of them, like I said, some of the organic ones and that because they do break down, you don't have that advantage. So then you come back and have to replenish the infill. Yes?
What's the annual, you mentioned that if we keep the synthetic condition annually and take care of it, what would that cost?
It's about $7,000 a year to maintain a field. Yep.
So when you're designing costs, civil engineering, like I'm concerned about stormwater, right?
Yep.
Subterranean water is very wet up there. You have that in your design?
Yes.
In the estimate?
Yeah, we've built fields right in floodplains because as you may know, a lot of high schools are built either near wetlands or floodplains. You guys are at least on the hill. It may be wet, but they're designed to promote infiltration, but also, as I said, that the field has a big curb around it, and that almost acts as the stone will hold some of the water until it it can release.
So permitting with the state, with stormwater and all that is all included?
We would design it. Right now, you don't have a wetland permit per se, so you may have a storm review through your town, but it would not kick into like Mass DEP.
How much is the lighting?
The lighting can run about 600,000. Yep. Yes.
What would, is there extra, as far as machines or maintaining the fields?
You would need like a gator, and then what we usually specify, and we have the turf manufacturers throw in, is what they call a groomer. Which basically, it almost looks like, I don't know if you've ever done, like irrigated your yard, they kind of have that little comb type apparatus that just kind of digs up. It's not as deep thatch, thank you. Kind of a thatcher type thing that what it does is it just redistributes and kind of churns up the infill. And then, so it's really not that expensive. I mean, I don't know, you may have a gator, you can use a golf cart, I don't know what equipment you might have. But something along those lines. And like I said, we usually get the turf contractors to throw the maintenance equipment in. So
I seem to remember past conversations with the committee, having some discussion about safety of natural turf versus synthetic.
Yeah.
So do you have any information you can share about that?
Yeah, I mean, bottom line, and as you know with the NFL, everybody loves to play on a wonderful grass field, but unfortunately, most school districts like you all, your fields aren't pristine grass fields that are only used once a week or once every other week for a game. So the safety factor regarding injuries and such to a grass field, kind of your average high school field compared to a turf field, the turf field is better. Only because some of your grass fields, you have kind of clumps and, ankle twisting type items that make it a little more, or it can be wet, if your fields don't drain well, so then you have more slip factors in that, so.
What is the premium to go to a traditional grass field versus a turf field?
What we would do, since you said your field is wet, we would for a grass field, you're probably just the turf field is usually we kind of in the realm of 800,000. To do a grass field, the grass field, if you have wet conditions, we would be putting in almost the same under drain system to make sure that field drains properly, and you're more in the 600 to 650,000 range. It's not a yeah, it's that base is where your cost, and obviously the carpet, but.
Any other questions or comments?
So, your opinion on if we were just to do the track and field, the main field,
Yeah.
that would offer us immediate relief on our existing fields and the conditions that they have.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, it would be like giving you two fields.
So it would reduce the use on our other fields on it. So the overall package is $8.34 million. We're looking at a 2.8
Yeah.
for immediate relief by just doing the main athletic field with a new track. And our current track doesn't meet any kind of criteria to hold any meet on that track. Both the size as well as the product that's used.
Yeah,
It
it's
doesn't
pretty
have the rubberized top
deteriorated.
on it. So I just wanted to make that clear, that why 8.34 million versus 2.8, that it would give us immediate relief. Again, still a challenge to find 2.8, but priority-wise, I think that would give us immediate relief and address some of the major concerns that we have on that.
Yes.
You had mentioned staging and so forth, and what Superintendent Burns just said is a 2.8. So would that 2.8 be enough to do that complex up the top, the track and the field, or are you going to add because of the staging? Now I understand
No,
because there's other parts of the field that's when it would cost more if you were to come back later and do the baseball.
Yeah, it's just, when you do a project separate, there's all your kind of, office costs, admin costs, design, when we do a design, if we did the whole thing at once, it's not gonna cost you as much as doing it piece by piece. And plus, every job you start, you have mobilization costs, you have, all of that. But the cost, the 2.8 that for the track and the field, that includes the track and field. Plus some of the field events as well. We redo the, your long jump, triple jumps, your, all of that is being included in those track improvements.
And through the chair, if I could just add the additional parking across, if we were to move the baseball field over there and do a multi-purpose, that would accommodate our student parking at Maynard Field. We get them a lot closer to Maynard, and we put a crosswalk as well as a sidewalk to get them up a little bit safer, because there is no sidewalk on Old Muggett Hill on that. So that's why the team felt if we were going to do any parking, it should accommodate what we have offsite on that.
But that came out of the 2016 because of the solar project.
So I don't,
Putting fields across the road.
for the solar,
Yes.
it wasn't,
Correct.
yeah, it
Those
wasn't.
fields were in the original 2016.
Correct.
They were, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there were two multi-purpose,
Correct.
yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
in a small pocket.
right.
Right.
Anything else?
So I think we probably have some internal discussion as far as our next steps, but I guess my question here is, if there's any other remaining questions for Kathy while we have her present? Kathy, thank you so much
Oh,
for
you're
coming out
welcome.
and,
You're welcome.
working through it.
And we have several track and field projects that we did last year or whatever. We'd be happy to give you a list and some contacts, whether it's the AD or the superintendents, and you know that you can go out and see them and see what you'd be getting and what you know a true regulation track and all that would look like. So
Thank you.
thank you.
So having heard all of that, I guess my question for the committee would be the preferred next steps. I think probably the biggest disservice we could do was to obtain all this information and then not do anything with it. I kind of think that's what happened with the 2016 study, and that's why we're here today. And obviously, we know we have a problem with communication with parents and different folks who have provided feedback to us. So I'd like to hear some suggestions and steps.
I think historically, I would recommend not to hold up time, because this should be on fast track. But I would be in favor of seeing it go into the Building and Grounds Committee for discussion and recommendations being brought up to us as a school committee. That would be my first thing. That would probably get through a lot of questions. There's a lot of folks on that committee who have experience and all of this, that probably tackle that at that point.
The biggest thing for me, not to interrupt, is the funding source. Where are we gonna get funding source from?
So
That was gonna be my next.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't have
We're-
to foolish that question.
Well, what I was gonna suggest on that front is obviously, I think the funding source, this is gonna have to be put forward to the town. I don't see the district in and of itself coming up with either 2.8 or 8.3 million. So, having said that, I agree that we should go to buildings and grounds, but maybe for when we go to buildings and grounds, and I'm looking to Irene for some assistance on this, perhaps we could estimate what the average impact would be per town based on our agreement and these estimated costs. And that way, at least the subcommittee would have an idea of what that would look like up front.
Can I just do a memory refresher here? Did we already pay and approve the $182,000 to pay for these fees? We haven't done that yet.
No, through the chair, that's a proposal to provide the engineering services if we were to move forward on it. So we've only paid for the updated master plan.
Okay.
So everything they've done to date to bring our new estimates and new designs up to.
What did that cost?
To you, off the top, how much?
Sorry, what was the question? I didn't hear.
The study, the
The
Gale
stuff,
study.
what do we
just
have
pay Dale?
in the master plan?
Just for this report.
Oh dear, we just got the bill for that too, didn't we?
The final bill, make it.
Yeah, it's several thousands, it's not tens of thousands,
But it was
But
around 10, wasn't it?
yeah, probably about 10. Sorry, this one I could have told you, I know what Yale cost me, but I don't remember what the other one cost.
So what did this updated one cost?
50,000.
Okay.
So if I may, just.
No, this was 20,000.
Okay.
20,000 for the updated plan, updated phase plan, the proposal that you.
15.
If I may, just as a thought for the building and subcommittee members going into this, to Mike's point about, if we do spend the $180,000 for the design proposal, is the school committee ready to go after 2.8 mil bother looking at this if we're not. Okay, one.
Right.
Number two is that the, for the 2.5 mil that we're gonna do up top here, these fees not included are pretty extensive. I don't think they would impact what's gonna happen up top because we're already here. But if we wanted to do the $8 million one, then I'm looking at all of these fees that are not included, and there's probably about another $2 million worth of mitigations, from flood plans to habitat studies, and if we do run into the whoopee will that, exists down there, you're running into more money. So it's just food for thought, building a subcommittee going forward.
That's it.
That's it, so if you look at.
It's on page 8.
It's
182.
I'm not seeing, where are you coming up with the 2 gig?
No, I'm just, that's off the top of my head, looking at, you have studies, habitat studies on page 8, mitigation designs, flood plan elevations.
So this, through the chair, so this proposal is to provide the engineering services just for the track and field. If we were, so, provided this, if we decided to move ahead with the track and field, the 182 would cover the engineering.
Just for the track.
Right, for the track and field. So that's the reimbursable sub-consultant fees. That would be the all-inclusive fee for engineering services.
Not the fields down below.
No. Right, so the 8.34 covers all the engineering. So we couldn't, if you looked at the proposal, I think it was the master plan price, it's, 2.06 million for the track and field. That's where Kathy said, if
Okay.
you have to incur the 182 on top of that, which would bring it up to 2.2 million.
Apologies that I misunderstood.
No,
I was looking at everything.
right, no.
All right, sorry.
In the financing of this, where does the vocal private sector, the parents, the outside, fit into this financing? Because it'd be a lot easier for them to raise a certain percentage of money and then go to the towns and say, we've already raised this amount of money, this percentage, and now we're asking you to, become part of it.
So,
Because with the financing, it would have to be all 10 towns.
Sure.
Approved by all 10 towns.
I think that's a great point, and I also, it's just my opinion, I think we're headed into,
yeah, that's right. So,
I think we're headed into some tougher economic winds in the next few years, things are more challenging. I'm hearing this locally in the Rochester District about budget challenges coming up this spring and things. I just, it has to be a realistic conversation about how realistic would it be to go to the towns for this kind of funding.
So that's,
Do we have the chair?
I'm gonna go
Chair?
Dave, and then I'm gonna go Kyle, but I'm gonna jump in first. I'm gonna take a little liberty. So the struggle that I've been having with this, I fully agree. I mean,
By the way, I'm not against it, I just raised a
Right.
question.
I think many of us have probably been involved in other elected or appointed seats in our various towns, and so this struggle isn't new to any of us. But I guess what I would suggest, knowing that it's as much of an uphill battle as it is, we all know it is, when it comes to getting funding over and above what's necessary and required to fund the core school. If we know this is an issue, we know this issue isn't gonna go away. And if we, who are the closest to the issue, don't communicate the fact that the issue is there to the member towns, for those member towns to then assess and decide where it falls in their overall priorities, then I think we're probably doing a disservice not only to Bay Path, but to the member towns as well. So regardless of how much of a struggle or a challenge we think it might be for the towns to actually fund this, I truly think it's still our responsibility to bring the need and the associated costs to the towns for them at least to put onto their radar.
I agree.
So I'll go back to Dave.
Yeah, thank you. And I totally agree with you. And I just want to echo what Bob said. I think it would behoove us going forward at some point, maybe in the initial subcommittee portion to involve some parents, because they've been the vocal here, and if they're in at the ground level, you're going to buy in from them to be able to go through. I think that's just a recommendation on my part.
So we'll go Kyle and then Kyle.
Take the first half.
Tim.
So,
Maybe I don't have the hand. Personally, honestly, without a major sponsor, I don't see this going anywhere. I really don't. And if that sponsor, we need a hook on this. Whether or not it is us stating, and I'm going to refer back to comments made earlier. Comments of we have X number of dollars already raised, and if we as a 10-town district don't approve that, we'll lose those funds. Or if we have a major sponsor, and the major sponsor offsets this significantly. There's no way that we would ever, it would be pie in the sky, looking at a 2.8 price tag split among our 10-town district.
That's why I think it's important to have numbers in front of us, and that's why I was suggesting that Irene could potentially
I know what
provide that.
Dudley just went through in this last fiscal year.
So when you look at 2.8 or 2.2, whatever the number was, million across 10 towns, that looks, per town, that looks very different. And then when you further slice and dice per town down to the impact that that has on the tax rate and any given average home value, that also paints a very different picture. So I think it's worth our while to at least see what those numbers are and quantify it to be able to say, hey, this is the impact, this is the estimated impact versus looking at that big number. And it is what it is. But when we break it down across 10 towns and thousands of households across the 10 towns, what is that number to an individual's pocketbook?
But you also have to take a look at the fact, how many of those houses, those homes in those 10 towns have that personal attachment to me.
Oh, sure.
So it's.
How, can we get, as a takeaway, can we get the numbers broken down by town? Obviously, that's what we need.
So, yeah, through the chair, we can definitely do that. We can break that down. There are some unique funding. Was it Greater Lawrence? I think it was Greater Lawrence.
Yes.
Put in a brand new field, and that was through some state funding. So we can approach our local reps and the state senator on that. How they did it, it was tied to, they had a major renovation of Greater Lawrence. The only thing that wasn't updated and fully ADA compliant was the athletic facilities. So there was state funding available there. So we could look at that, see how they did that. So we've already reached out to the business manager to see what we can do on that. Our athletic director did reach out to a local franchisor and floated the $2 million to them on a synthetic track and field update on that. So we can see how that goes on it. Shepherd Hill, I think, is Duncan's. So not Duncan's, but another franchisor in the area. So we are looking at that, but we can definitely break it down based on the formula and the current population on that. I think, I'll just echo, the chairman's, if we never ask, when do we start asking?
Yeah.
Because to put it on the radar and let them know, it's, we all know, through the last budget go-around and the difficulties that our majority of our 10 towns had on not passing the overrides, and the discourse there. Article just came out today about a $200 million shortfall in tax revenue and a proposed $375 million cut to budgets statewide. So
That's what I was thinking.
we are,
I saw that.
we're uphill battle, it's like 90 degrees uphill for this. There isn't an appetite to increase it. You know, to Tim's point, if it's a town, the town can benefit. We have 10 towns, and Paxton's not coming here to have their AAU practice on our field. And there isn't a lot of sympathy. Charlton would be the town that would say, hey, this is a great benefit to us, and we should put this up. So, but we are already exploring different avenues for unique funding. But we can pull that together and start looking at, you know, what the actual cost with no funding would be. But yeah, if it continues the way it does and the fields deteriorate, then we start looking at cutting programs to give us the time for the seed to regenerate on that and what programs. And if you want parent support, let them know that we're cutting a sport and they'll show up. But I'm not saying to do that as a threat. That's the reality though. We shut it down this summer to give it that time, and we did have some success, but big rainstorm, the picture they had was the mud fest that we had for the homecoming football game on that day. So they are taking a lot. So
If I may, through the chair, I just want a novel idea. We could sell lettering the size of John's nameplate. Just notice how big that is. That could be a definite PSL.
Don, I don't think I ever circled back to you.
No, but I don't think anyone in the room disagrees that we need an upgrade. You know, from a liability standpoint, just from the use. The question becomes, how do we sell it? You can break it all down in each town, and, you know, it's basically going to end up proportional for every town. And the smaller towns are going to say we can't afford it. The bigger towns are going to say we don't want to afford it to the town taxpayers. I think having parental input, not so much as a fundraising thing, but just have parental input as, you know, that we can take, hey, you know, you're from this, our town, okay, you're complaining because your kid's playing in the mud. They've got to go out and beat the bushes and sell it at you. We can present the information, but we've got to have that support from the, you know, the students' parents that are going to, you know, go ahead with a positive attitude. Because a lot of people aren't.
Yeah, I think it's going to be critical. We get the information to the towns, but we also share it with the kids and the parents associated with the, you know, the events that use those fields, so they in turn, those people, can go to their towns and express why there's a need for this, because they can hear it from us, and that's one thing, but to your point, if they hear it from a Bay Path kid or a Bay Path parent, and, you know, on a finance committee or a select board,
Or a
that
fellow
means
taxpayer.
something different, yeah.
You know, they want to, you know, you want to have you know, your peer group, so to speak, talking about that in a positive way. I mean, it's not that much money. It's 2.8 mil, 10 towns, 280,000 a town.
Want the numbers, I'll give them to you.
Oh, okay.
See that?
We'll take it.
Okay, so I'm going to start with Auburn, which is the largest percentage at 15.45 of the capital population. To do just the track field and the football field would be $432,600. To do the full thing that Gail suggested for Auburn would be $1,297,800.
I think was well over
For the town of Charlton, which is actually our fourth largest town, to do just the field and track would be $339,900. To do the entire program would be $1,019,800. For Dudley, which is actually next in line, tied with Oxford, $287,300 for just the track and field, and $861,800 to do the whole program. North Brookfield, which is our smallest town tied with Paxton, 3.95% of the capital population, would be $110,600 for just the track and field, and $331,800 for the entire project. Oxford, 10.3% capital population, similar to Dudley, $288,400, just the track and the field, and $865,200 to do the whole program. Paxton, same as North Brookfield, 3.95%, $110,600 for track and field, $331,800 for our entire project. Rutland, 9.48% of our capital population, $265,400, and then $796,300 for the whole project. I got 3 more towns to go. Southbridge, 13.84% of capital population, $387,500 track and field, $1,162,600 for entire project. Spencer at 8.08% of our capital population, $226,200 for just the track and field, $678,700 for the whole project. And lastly, we have Webster, our third largest town at 12.55% of our capital population. It would be $351,400 for just the track and field, $1,054,200 for the entire project. Now, I can put this in writing, we'll have it more formally, but I know you guys were dying for this information tonight.
That's great.
So,
So all of a sudden, the numbers get a lot smaller.
Compared to 2.3 and
No, hey, this is what marketing's all about.
Yeah.
We don't dwell on the big number. Now we're down to, now you take it to the next level, down to the individual homeowner.
Yeah.
So you say, okay, in our town, 110K,
But tax
Okay.
rate is.
big deal. 110K is about $5, per person, per household.
I mean, it sounds good.
yeah, I can drill it down even more, but that's enough for everyone to kind of digest for tonight.
But that's what we gotta do to market it.
Home industry.
What's the best case
It's
scenario?
Peter?
What's the best case scenario on money that you raise for solar field?
We don't know, to be fair. We'll have to go back out because, the proposal for the solar fields is as dated as the master plan. Solar panels as well as the storage battery requirements now, have all changed, so we don't know what that is. The draft proposal of the solar field wouldn't accommodate a regulation-sized baseball field. So those are rough schematics. When Gail looked at it, we had to increase that, which reduces the usable solar field park. So we'd have to go back out and have, a company come in, look at that area, give them the updated plans, and give us a proposal on what we could do. Again, so that's if we were to convince the town of Charlton to change their bylaws to accommodate a field of that size. So that's the next step that we would have to do. Because right now it's prohibited, so we need a bylaw change
Are
to
you
do
talking
that.
persuading selectmen, or is it something that's gonna, I need to go to the voters?
It would have to go to the town for a vote, so it's persuading the planning board, persuading the selectmen, and then, you get them on your side, hopefully you can persuade the town, but it's gotta go to the town. So, yeah. There is an avenue to explore that, sorry, Mike, there is a,
I'd like to speak on it, because I was involved with Clarence. So when they ran the numbers, I'm trying to remember what, again, it's a monthly rental.
of the property, you're collecting, I don't know, between 20 and 40,000 a month, a year, I think per month. Okay, so you still have to go out and secure the money in a loan or whatever and then pay it down. Payments, it's almost like going mortgage, right? To do the fields and then pay it down with the monthly income coming from solar. So that's where there's new programs now, but here again, Charlotte's got a moratorium, I think, size, megawatts. So those numbers would have to be redone to see what it would do. But again, it would have to, you're only gonna collect it as a rental income.
So,
It's not one big lump chunk of money you get.
right, so again, you'd have to, secure the money up front and pay that back over it. But there is a moratorium on both the size in terms of acreage that can be used for a solar field as well as megawatt generation. So those are the bylaws that we would have changed.
Because I'm sure Charlton would be open to a vote, because obviously we reside in Charlton. It would be open to, do a variance to put in a bigger project to benefit the school. I wouldn't think that, but it would have to go to a vote.
I'm sorry, is there anyone else?
We're represented by 2 US congressmen, and we have numerous state senators. We have a state rep race right now for what people to represent about a third of the district. Would it be beneficial to get the question out there, let's say even at least get the politicians to promise things that they may not be able to deliver? I mean, but how do we play this? Do we play, like I know because of some boys will be boys things that happened in a recent basketball game, if this wouldn't pass in Southbridge because we got a lot of foolishness that goes on in my town. We got people right now, the chairman of our town council, he hasn't said it publicly, but he talks about bringing back coal trade. It's absolutely, I think, insane. But, so it's not gonna float in my town. And although I'd like to see our athletes have at least a safe field, it's, you need all 10 towns or the majority of
2/3. If it's borrowed, if borrows, and, well, I think per the agreement, we need 2/3. Don, do you have a question?
Yeah, just to go back to the solar farm, how would we get that going again? Or what would be the next step? Obviously, it's not gonna be enough to get the fields, but it would certainly, 20,000 a month, whatever it is, could be helpful, in upkeep, or whatever.
That's a number
You're right, I
I'm thinking
understand that.
St. Joe's Church. I know St. Joseph's Church property in Charlton.
Yep.
I think that's what they're collecting per month. Okay? I think the megawatt size for this site originally was like double. So I'm thinking it was around 40.
I think we're talking 400,000 a year.
400,000. That's
A year.
So how do we, should we
A lot of
start moving?
a lot of hoops to jump through.
Yeah, but so I understand that, but we try to jump through it, or we just say it's not gonna happen?
Yeah, but before you even go there, I mean, it's the appetite. I'm gonna speak freely here, okay? I was on the building committee early for this project. Pay now or pay later. We should have went for the whole deal up front, gone to the towns, one, and done this job right. We still did, we got a brand new school, we got old fields from 1970. And I'm dealing with it at Spencer right now. Spencer's putting in new fields, but they're not putting in the turf. There are only 2 towns, and it's a premium of 600,000. They're going back to grass. That's what they can afford. But we're at a point right now, I mean, it is really a safety issue, and these fields are outdated. It's like, to me, go for the whole thing and do it. Because it's just gonna cost more as the years go on. I just say go for the 8 now and see how we can do it. You should sell it, get a sponsor, look at the solar, let's do it right and get it done. Instead of doing the small piece. Small piece will get us by, but you're still dealing with baseball fields that are old and outdated.
Survey. I'll try to answer your question through the chair. I think the next step is, now that we have an updated master plan, is to solicit, and I'd start with reaching out to, the company that did the solar proposal that was accepted, or, agreed upon, that one. And ask them to update that, see what the cost is, and then bring that to the school committee to see if they'll appropriate that cost. And that will give us the new, this is how big we can use, this is what it will generate, this is based on this, and see what that is. Because, again, it's income, so if we can show that to the towns, the due diligence, that also, if it's worth it, that'll tell us, is it worth, soliciting Charlton to change their bylaws for it. So the next step would be to submit this, now that it's completed, to that company and see what the cost for that proposal is and move forward on that. Right? So we can look at that as well.
Thank you. So I heard, I'm sure we could go on forever talking through this tonight, but I've heard a lot of good suggestions and proposals. So I'm just going to kind of recap and wondering if we should put this in the form of a motion. So the first proposal we had, or next step, was to refer to Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee for further discussion and review. Along with that, to further detail and break down the costs. And Irene gave us a good precursor to that, but I think the other thing that needs to be incorporated into that is when we look at what the appropriate borrowing period would be for any of those given towns, and factor that into that annual impact for it. We have, I think, outreach effort that we can start on at any point, reaching out, drafting requests to or letters to all of the appropriate state senators and representatives of any state funding and or grant opportunities, and then to continue to pursue the solar piece of this as far as a funding source too. So there's kind of, I think, 4 or so points baked into that. If someone wants to make a motion to that effect as far as how we proceed with the next steps.
I didn't hear anything about the parents in the vocal parties.
Well, yeah,
They need to be on the ground floor,
Let's do
because
it.
they're the spokespeople.
Okay, so I'm not sure what the proposal would be to start that now, or whether that would come from the conversation or recommendations that the subcommittee would bring forward as far as what they think.
Should we get the athletic department involved in talking to the parents?
Through the chair, I would, yes, to your point, but I would recommend that comes out of the building grounds subcommittee, to propose that to us.
Yeah,
Make a package.
I would agree.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that the proposal from Gail be put in front of the Building and Grounds Subcommittee for review and recommendation to the school committee. Topics to be covered would be parental involvement in the proposal and those other 3 items you mentioned.
Okay. Cost breakdowns, the solar opportunity, and elected official outreach efforts.
Second.
And propose that to the committee by March. I think we're gonna move on this right away before school's out.
I second that.
Just a second.
How about major donor? Is there any?
Yeah,
Is there really one that
Do we have to approve we have something on the agenda to accept the proposed Gale Associates master plan? Do we have to agree to approve that first, then bring it to the subcommittee? Or are you combining the two?
Where do you see accept of the proposal?
B4A, to accept the proposed Gale Associates athletics field master plan.
Oh, so maybe I'm looking at a different version of it. Mine just says draft of, does it say?
Draft athletic field master plan.
So I think as, through the chair, right, it's, it was presented, they completed the study. The presentation was, I believe, to see if any recommendations, could you look at this or not look at that, so. Yeah, I don't think it needs to be accepted.
I don't think we need to accept the study that was presented to us. I think it's a case of how we want to act on that study.
Yes.
Unless, if there's a desire to officially accept it, I wouldn't have any opposition to that.
Is it in the agenda?
Well, the topic is on the agenda, so I think that's okay. Okay, so, but we have a motion on the table that Mr. Grenier made relative to referring it to buildings and grounds, covering those various topics. We have a second. Is there any questions relative to that?
Did you read the full proposal?
The whole thing?
No, that was
Yeah,
for the
so-
motion.
I'm gonna summarize, or actually, do you have it written down where you can summarize it, or do you want me to give it a go? Okay, so the motion was to refer the Gale Associates master plan to the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee, for the subcommittee to come back to the full committee by March, covering the topics of cost breakdowns, representative outreach, parental and student outreach, and potential solar opportunities as a funding source. Did I miss any? And major sponsorship.
Outreach meaning making them part of the discussion of the whole project.
That can be a double-edged sword.
It could be, but,
You want to be kind of careful with that.
yeah, and again, it's just a thought, so whatever the subcommittee wants to do. Yeah, you're right, I agree.
Did that answer your question, Peter? Okay, John?
You know, $1 million for some of the larger towns is a big bite, but can some be done where we pull a bond, excuse me, so that over the 10 years it might, like my town, instead of being a single expense of roughly $1,200,000, where it might be $150,000 a year for 10 years?
Yeah, so that
Can
was.
we present it that way, or
I
is
think
that
that's
out of-
what I was asking Irene for. So a lot of borrowing opportunities have an acceptable amount period that they can borrow for. I'm not sure what a field is. It's probably up to 10 years or so. So what the ask of Irene would be to calculate
Yeah, I'll do that,
what
various
the annual
options
cost to float the bond per town would be. So
Right.
we know what that annual cost would
versus just doing it all at one time, yeah.
Is
I'll
it-
need a little bit more time for that.
be. Okay. So, but yes, that's.
That might be.
Because most towns, I think, would have to finance it. I don't think you're gonna find any town, maybe one or two, that would be able to pay out of pocket. I don't think it would happen. All right, any other questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion carries. Thank you. I know that was a long conversation, but we spent a good amount of money on the study, so it probably was warranted, so thank you. Next item up on the agenda is our executive superintendent director. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the other new business. Surplus equipment under new business.
Superintendent Director, the school business manager, and the IT director recommend the school committee vote to place 421 devices of little to no value on the surplus equipment that's to be disposed of according to the school committee surplus equipment policy using the most appropriate method available.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any questions?
What are the items? Roughly.
So Liz, through the chair, it's identified in the, in your packages. Analog security cameras for desktop computers, 57, Apple iPads, 90, desktop monitors, 12, access points, 139, laptop computers, 33, other miscellaneous equipment, printers, UPSs and switches, 86. Most are obsolete and of little or no use, so And then there's a detailed list of everything as well, so.
Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item C, under new business, acceptance of grant awards.
For Superintendent Director and the business, or through the chair, sorry. The Superintendent Director and the School Business Manager recommend the school committee vote to accept CFDA 84.425U grant in the amount of $10,000 and the 400 Mass EDIP Public Access Charging Program grant in the amount of $30,000 as presented.
Is there a motion?
Motion made.
Second. Who seconded it? Don seconded it. Yep, any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Now we can go to the report from the superintendent.
So through the chair, I submitted a written report and I'm prepared to answer any questions should you have them on the written report.
Are there any questions on the written report? All right, seeing none, we'll go to subcommittee reports. Audit subcommittee, Mr. Caldwell.
Nothing to report.
Budget subcommittee, Mr. Tim Schuler.
Nothing yet.
Building and grounds subcommittee.
We have nothing tonight.
But you will.
All those quiet months.
Negotiation subcommittee.
I just have one item, Unit M negotiations, which is administrators, begins tomorrow at noon time. And I know folks on the subcommittee are working, so tomorrow's kind of an odd, for a working person. It's at 12 here. Going forward, we'll try to get it later in the afternoon so subcommittee members can attend. So this will be the final leg of all the negotiations and for the administrators.
Thank you, Dave. Policy subcommittee.
We had met prior to our regular school committee meeting and proposed the MASC policy for recommendation.
And now the real work begins.
Now the real one's passed through the whole.
All right, thank you. Warrant subcommittee is noted, the warrants, they're up in this corner. Future business, our next meeting will be on February 5th. Topics for the agenda, please share if you have any. One item that will appear on the February,
You said about future business, is that the time to bring up something new or?
I was just gonna mention one thing, and we can add if you have something else, John. One item that we had previously discussed when we set the superintendent's goals and objectives for the year is that this time around, we wanted to do kind of a mid-year checkpoint. And we had decided that February would be that checkpoint. So the superintendent plans to provide some feedback relative to his goals that we've set for him of where he stands. And I think the goal is that the superintendent would provide those out about a week prior to our February meeting so that we have some time to look at it and formulate any questions, and then we'll present that at our February meeting. So that's an item that will appear in February. John, do you have another?
Yeah, Mr. Packard, I apologize if what I'm about to say is outside of the way, because I should have talked to you before the meeting, I didn't think of it at the time. Apparently there was some rough play at a Southbridge Bay Path basketball game. And I did a little investigation amongst Bay Path students that live in Southbridge and attended. And it's not the same as, what I heard isn't the same as what I heard from our local police chief, who seems to blame it on Bay Path basketball players. We used to play rough when I played high school, and it was encouraged. It seems to me there was just a little rough play underneath the basket, in the rebound. That's been turned into someone punching someone, or I think someone, I don't know if they got elbowed or if they got the side of someone's fist. But this is what I'm concerned about. And it's two things. One, you got the rumors, and you got the truth, and they're not always the same. But what I'm hearing is that Southbridge and Maypath might not play basketball anymore. Now, that might be the way the state might suggest things like that be handled, or some other people more knowledgeable than me, but I remember as a boy when there was something like that between a Southbridge High and Tantascwa game. And they didn't play football that next year. It went on for a decade. It resulted in all types of foolishness between the two towns. It just went on about a decade. And then when they were going to play after a decade, when the players were in the second grade, there was people there waiting for potential breakout of fights. And I don't think saying you can't play together anymore is the way to handle it. Myself, I would think maybe you invite those Southbridge High kids up here, enjoy a delicious meal. At lunchtime, sit down and talk, shake hands, and just understand sometimes when you play sports, it gets a little rough. If we go and it's only a rumor, and I should have checked this with you beforehand. If we say we can't play together anymore, and I love our police chief. Believe me, compared to past police chiefs that were down and out corrupt, and the state verified that, this guy is great. But, I mean, it was a state investigation. There are people in jail for decades that didn't belong here. This guy's a hometown guy. This is the first time in 8 years I've disagreed with him on anything. But to come out and blame it on PayPal, when who knows? Who knows? It really, who cares? It's just, I think it can be patched up instead of saying you can't play together anymore. And also, in my town, in other towns, we have any of the district towns, they're playing PayPal. That's not good. You have two high schools in your community. It helps divide the community. Where the Bay Path kids and the Southbridge kids, it may continue into the summer. It's not. I don't know. I don't know the whole story because I wasn't there. Neither was our police chief. But I think we could make peace. If it comes down to inviting them up here and a bus and it costs them money, I'll raise money from the local businessmen for that expense of having them together for a meal to get along. I don't know, that's all I wanted to say. I hope we can turn this into an opportunity for showing young men and young ladies, maybe you got the cheerleaders there too, to resolve your problems instead of what the rumor is that they won't be playing together anymore.
So I know you brought this up, John, as a future agenda item, but I think perhaps there can be some explanation provided here, either by the superintendent or principal, so I'll give them an opportunity to speak to that.
Sure. Through the chair, without talking about student athlete discipline or disparaging any team, there was an incident between the Southbridge and the Charlton basketball teams. A full investigation was completed. I was out of the office at the time. I do want to give kudos to Principal Packard, who handled it and kept me completely informed of the situation and other developments of it, as well as keeping the chair informed of the developments. A full investigation was done, a review of all available video and pictures, as well as statements were taken. It was resolved, and there were no findings against Bay Path student athletes on that. As we do with every schedule, we review our schedules going forward on an individual basis, who we will play in future years and this and that. We will continue to do that. There was dialogue with the chief as well. Our concerns, or the result, not concerns, the results of our investigation were relayed to the chief and the MIA, and the MIA, concurred with the results of the investigation on that. So again, without getting into detail to disparage any teams or talk about anything that's needed out in terms of discipline, it's not appropriate, we don't comment on that. It was resolved, and our athletic director and our principal and the teams and the coaches do review the schedules going forward. And we will keep that in mind. You're concerned about future play against.
So it's not necessarily true that they won't be playing?
I don't know what the schedule is, I don't know what, comes forward in each year, but, we can look at that and take into consideration. We always look to resolve the matter, not, avoid that, so sportsmanship and all of that comes into play. And, can we move forward from it? Absolutely, I believe we can move forward from it. And in terms of Mr. Baggett to add anything, because again, I was out of the office at that time.
So, John, to your point through the chair, it was about 10 hours worth of investigation where we had a team of individuals look at the entire incident. For those of you who don't know me, I'm also a high school basketball official and I'm the president of all the officials out of Worcester. So I called the officials immediately when it took place. What happened quickly. And it wasn't, nothing was intended to happen. There was an incident that took place, there was a reaction to an incident, and then it was a situation that we all wouldn't want to happen. The officers that were there did the best they could to control all the kids. The reporters were calling the next day to Superintendent Britta's comment. We don't comment on kids, we don't comment on investigations. A lot of individuals were spoken to get statements. There was full collaboration with the athletic director of Southbridge, the principal of Southbridge. Unfortunately, a quick story came out of the Worcester Telegram that accused Southbridge of being the individual team that started the whole issue, and that quickly changed. So whatever the culture is in Southbridge, they're trying to build it back, they're trying to do the right things. We've spoken to every student involved, all coaches involved. We've talked about what we need to do moving forward. To talk about the evolution of scheduling, the MIAA has a lot to do with that, with points and football drives a lot of schedules. So again, to say that we'll never play them again in something, I couldn't say that right now either. I just know that our schedule is evolving. It's going to utilize the capacity that's going to put our kids in the best position to be successful and be on the court. So to your point about proximity and relationships, they're important. And surrounding towns are important as well. So I'd have to circle back with the athletic director on that to see where we're going to be going in the future in that capacity. But I did have a direct conversation with Chief Woodson. I know him personally. I know his kids, I know his family, and we were able to have a very good conversation about the incident.
Without getting too specific, but this has been raised, was this just a typical brawling, fighting?
This was a typical, there was some released energy to a point where it led to something it shouldn't have led to. And there were some behaviors that were
that's kind of vague, was this fighting on?
Yeah, well,
so I was public, people saw it, so.
Yeah, so it's all over YouTube, you can watch it yourself anytime, just put it in. But at the end of the day,
Sure.
I don't mean that in a negative way,
Yeah,
I'm just saying that the perception of what happened was a child's reality in the moment, and the officials couldn't break it up.
Okay.
So it just manifested, it went from 0 to 150 in a matter of a second. And at that point in time, it's fight or flight. Kids are in defense mode, officials are going off the court, and the police took over and did their job to get everybody.
That's it. We've been talking about it for 20 minutes, so I want to comment.
Yeah, no,
Thanks.
it's unfortunate situation.
Okay, so my question after hearing that, John, is you raised that under topics for future agenda. I'm not sure that it's really a topic there for the committee to address other than an understanding of what occurred. So are you good with the explanation that you received tonight?
I went into this having full faith in the principal and the school administration, but it was behind, on my mind when I wasn't particularly agreeable with getting the state involved. You brought up the organization that MIA, sometimes they get different. I think these things can be worked out more often, but sometimes, there's reasons, I don't know.
Through the chair, certain instances dictate the MIA gets involved. the officials make statements on it, it has to be investigated by the MIA.
Well, I get their investigation, it's the results sometimes, I don't think that, I don't know, I'm concerned that maybe we don't even have the ability or right, or say, I should have said, the option of making peace and continue to play. When you don't play, when you say, it's almost like, I know couples have gotten along for 15 years without a problem. Then there's an incident some night, and then there's, people can't see each other, can't get within 150 feet, marriages break up, you know?
So, through the chair, the MIA is great about sportsmanship and about removing hate from the athletic fields. We attended last year, the principal, the athletic director and myself, addressing hate in sports. So there's a lot of work. So there is the, bringing the sides together and removing that from it. This was beyond rough play. It was an incident that did, have police response and had to be investigated. It was very collaborative, again, through Mrs. Packard and Southbridge principal as well as athletic director and our athletic director as well. So there is, the move forward is the healing, but with everything that takes some time. And when we talk about the schedule, we can't guarantee that we'll play them, again, based on MIA standings and points and school size and all of that. We'll look to it. We have recently, I think, we have played Southbridge in other sports since the incident. Yes, so it's not a cop launch, but we have played them.
Yeah, they're still on our schedule throughout this year.
Good.
That was just it. We're always teaching kids, and at the end of the day, it's about the lessons we can provide for them as the adults and role models. So to your point, John, I agree that those type of ideas could be really good. But I would say at this point in time, a little time for all parties is a good thing, and collaborate back as the adults and try to do what's best.
Thank you. Moving on to the remarks from the superintendent director.
Sure, through the chair, I have a few remarks. I want to congratulate Coach Ford, our cheerleading team, for the 2022-2023 earning their District 2 Central Mass Championship, and they were honored the other night at before the boys varsity games with the raising of the banner for that achievement. So congratulations there. I have a letter from a former student, class of 2023, from Southbridge, Emma Gachow. Some of you may recall she won, before we started the Leo Club, she won the state speech contest on that. And part of her final exam in one of the classes, she's at UConn studying engineering, was to thank a teacher that had a large impact. So Mrs. Barbara Cody, our ELA instructor, shared this beautiful letter with me, and I wanted to pass it on. And I'll paraphrase some of it. Ms. Gachow said, I was tasked with selecting a high school teacher who has made a profound impact on us, and write a letter to say thank you. Without hesitation, you immediately came to mind. I feel an immense sense of gratitude for having had you as my teacher throughout my 4 years of school. The opportunities you provided, such as participating in the speech competition and leading the Leos Club, have allowed me to evolve into a person I aspire to be. Your lessons on gaining confidence in public speaking have made me a better communicator. I no longer hesitate to voice my thoughts and concerns, feeling empowered to convey my true feelings. Overcoming my fear of making friends in college, I've reached out to people and I have made meaningful connections. It feels so nice to have found a community here that supports me. Furthermore, in my anthropology class, I gave a presentation in front of 30 people. Despite this being a far smaller number than the speech competition, I was still anxious while up there. However, the skills I gained from the competition, like maintaining eye contact, speaking slowly and clearly, enunciating, really helped my confidence. As for leadership, I am the treasurer for the Freshman Leadership Initiative of the National Society for Black Engineers. The Leo's Club has prepared me well for engaging with the other e-board members, to express my opinions and openly welcome feedback, as well as building off of other people's ideas. So far, my favorite event we have participated in was volunteering at the Engineering of Future, where we mentored Black middle school students. We spoke to them about various engineering topics and our experience in college. It was a wonderful experience, and I thoroughly enjoyed spending time with them. And I am fortunate enough as to where I am doing this from my part-time job. I attend events in which we showcase projects designed to introduce STEM concepts to K through 12 students. It has been really fulfilling to inspire curiosity among students and watch them explore and find interest within the field. As one last thing I think would make you happy to know, 2 weeks ago I was selected for an Engineering Scholar Award, which will pay $10,000 for my tuition each year. I also won a $3,000 scholarship for memorizing 70 first and last names and reciting it in front of an audience.
That's impressive.
I look forward to continuing to apply the lessons and skills you have taught me as I navigate my journey. I hope you know that you will always be a role model and a mentor that I hold dear to my heart. Thank you for listening to me, caring for me, being patient, and showing me my true value. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. So we don't always get to hear the huge success stories, and I can assure you this is happening throughout our school with the different teachers. They don't always write back and let you know, but it's happening.
I think we can thank Bob Wilby
And
for
that's-
that Leo connection.
Absolutely. So that was before we had the Leo Club, and Miss Cody and Miss Donovan took the lead as advisors and started the club. So it's just expanding and paying dividends beyond. But yes, it is a tribute to Bob Wilby too. Other news. Our Renaissance Club has a New Year gear design contest. So you all received the flyer, and students have an opportunity to design a t-shirt for the 23-24 school year, and you'll all have an opportunity to vote on it, and the details on how to vote and the designs will be forwarded to you in a separate communication as they're available. So look forward to that great opportunity. And let's see, just a reminder that the general advisory meeting is this Wednesday. Dinner is at 6, and the menu just came out, so check your emails. It's filet mignon and baked shrimp, stuffed shrimp, broccolini, and dessert. There's a risotto appetizer, and dessert is a cheesecake. Right? So if you didn't sign up, you might want to sign up. If you are planning on attending, please let Peggy know as soon as possible. So, house building program, we had 23 individuals pick up applications to fill out. We had 1 application submitted, so we'll forward that. It closed. Yep, so of the 23, only 1 submitted the application. I believe Mr. Tripp, it's a Charlton resident wanting to build in Dudley, right? Correct. Right. So we'll review that. It looks like a promising application and a nice house build on that. What we are doing though is 23, I think, is the largest number based on the information that Ms. Corsi put forward to us for interest. What we're doing is developing a survey for those. How come you didn't proceed with the full application? So we can maybe plug some leaks and get more applications going forward. But our advertising did, expand those interested. We'll just have to plug, why following through on that. And if it's timing or timelines, we could review that process and see if we need more time on that. And that's it. Happy New Year, everybody.
All right, thank you. Questions from the committee? We'll start on this side.
I guess I really don't have any. Well, Happy New Year, everybody. It's great to be back again. Hopefully you have a wonderful year together.
Ditto to the Happy New Year. Suggestion for the members of the committees, it's really worthwhile to participate in those meetings if you're part of the committee. If it allows you to put input into the discussion and the recommendations to the full committee.
glad to hear about building project generating so much interest. I will be interested to see if they can reply back to see why they weren't interested. It's big help to the school. Good. All set.
Happy New Year, everyone. I work in the utility industry. Please stay safe this week. More fire outages. Stay safe. Stay safe. Quiet. Go ahead, it's all you.
Thank you. Happy New Year, and hope everyone stays healthy this year.
Ditto all the previous comments.
I think we're gonna have a very interesting year ahead of us. Hopefully navigate it well. And, thank you for, I'm impressed the way you came up with those numbers.
Thank you.
Sometimes when numbers are asked for, it takes weeks, but not here. This is about the 5th time over my time here where, oh yeah, we'll get that eventually. It happens right away. That's a very good thing. Thank you, Mr. Packard. I wasn't questioning your decisions. I was just, you can imagine my small town, a lot of people ask me about it. I still don't know what to say exactly, but I have a better idea of what to say and what not to say. So thank you. Hopefully I get to see some. It's so encouraging to hear about this. Thursday night, is it?
Wednesday.
Wednesday night. Oh, I would have showed up a day late. There wouldn't have been any leftovers. Look forward to that. Let's go out there.
John, I had you covered. If you came a day late, I had you covered. I'm all set, thank you.
All set, thanks.
I just wanted to, again, compliment Mr. Packard and his newsletter, getting it in the email, keeping up communications with parents and stuff. Dean, it's good stuff. So, keep it up. It's good for me personally, just to see what's going on. And also to, congratulate Mr. Tripp for his, selection to a state board, is it?
Yeah, state vocational advisory.
State vocational advisory. In the few short years you've been here, that's a real compliment to your leadership and commitment to voc ed. So a lot of folks usually take about 10 years to get on that, and you did it in a short, 3 years, 4 years. So congratulations. Good stuff. Good stuff. That's it. Thanks.
Happy New Year, everyone. So what was the applicants again on the house building project?
23 pulled
And only one.
applications, 1 submitted. One more congratulations to Mr. Tripp. He was wed over the holiday break.
Finally that big secret.
Good, congratulations.
Thank you. That's great. I don't have anything additional to add. I would like to emphasize that letter that was sent to Ms. Cody. Did I say that correctly? I think that was a fantastic letter, great recognition for her and a tribute to the effort that she puts forward.
Is there any way we could forward that to
Two.
Is there any way we could forward that letter to Mr. Roby's family?
Absolutely will. I'll
Right.
send it to
I think that
the
would, I think that would really be a boost to them.
absolutely.
If you want to get it to me, I can personally deliver it to her. Up to you.
I marked up on this one. I'll get it to you though.
Yeah.
Yep,
I'll get it.
absolutely. Thanks, Joe.
Weekly in the newsletter, Spencer Newsletter, I read about our LPN program. And who's ever doing the publicity for that program, every week,
That's it.
without a doubt, there's pictures of the students, there's activities and everything going on. So they should be congratulated.
Those, I will pass those on to Director Grevlin Bolendrina. She is a dynamic workhorse, so she writes all the articles and submits those.
Weekly.
Yep, she did a great job. I will pass those along.
All right, and with that, I'm going to entertain a
Motion
motion
to
to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second, John and Anne Marie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This is carried.